6 of Doc Talk. And again, conspicuous by her absence, Dr. Regina Parnell. We're going to pull one out for she's going to be back with us next week. Fingers crossed. She should be back with us next week. Has some family stuff to deal with, but she's going to be back with us. And we're sending her our prayers and positive energy and love and light and all that good stuff. So we need her to power up so we can get her back over here for next week. And with me today, I have Dr. Crystal DeBerry out of Memphis, Tennessee. I have Dr. Jason Lester from Aurora, Colorado. I got Major Dr. Michell Greenidge out of Tampa, Florida. I am Dr. Jamaal Fortner from Houston, Texas. Today we begin a really awesome series. We're talking about love and some elements, and we're going to kind of go out of order, but we're just going to hang in there with it because I promise you'll enjoy it. Today, though, we're going to start at the end. We're going to talk about, is your relationship on life support? Or does it need to head to the funeral home? Let's get started with that one. So first off, let's just talk about a few signs that maybe your relationship is on life support.
When she gets quiet.
Uh-oh. That means she's brooding and she's just thinking of awful things to do to you.
Just know there's a plan in place. That's all I have. That's a big sign.
It is a big sign.
So if you're in the house with somebody that's being quiet, don't think that you're safe. They could be plotting. Just something to bear in mind. All right. What else y'all got?
I'm going to say when, not only when she's quiet, when he's quiet, and it just seems like no matter what, like I guess Chris Brown said it, there's never a right time to say goodbye. And, when, it just seems like, wow, we are roommates. I think that's when that could be a sign.
Mm-hmm. Yep, when that communication is gone, that is key right there. When you can no longer call yourselves friends and lovers, I think that's a huge issue. Because most of the time that's what brings us together, right? We can talk about anything, we can do anything, we can feel like we can be ourselves. Once you separate those things, that you on the road somewhere. I don't want to say funeral because I like for relationships to work out, right? But it's got to be constant effort on both sides, which is what I think we miss a lot of the times, is we start to look at each other like, he's not doing whatever, or she's not doing whatever. And then we feel like we're doing all the work, right? But in all actuality, it takes two, you know what I mean? And so what's going on there? Let's try and figure that out. And I think often in our community, we don't want to look at those things. We don't want to go to counseling and talk to nobody about. We don't even want to go to other successful couples and talk about it. So I think once that communication is gone, I think it's probably it's on its way somewhere.
Mm-hmm. So what I'm kind of hearing is like once the criticism and the contempt start to go up, when it's always, this is what you've done and this person didn't do this and they didn't do and they didn't do. And then when it also becomes, you see that low down, no good, thus and so, it sounds like when those things really start to rise up, at that point, we need to either pump the brakes and kind of go back to square one, or we need to have a hard sit down and have a heart-to-heart to find out, do we even want to continue? Because, one thing I'll say is this, when we talk about meeting each other in the middle, are we both putting in the same amount? Mm-hmm. I can say personally that sometimes what I've had to do is go back and say, did I set a pattern of me always giving more?
There you go.
Because I think sometimes we criticize our partner for something, but we had a hand in it. We let you set these patterns. We let you create these habits. And now, because I'm annoyed by something else, now I'm mad about this too. So, but I want to come back to what Dr. DeBerry said, especially about this not talking to people. So, if you're not talking, at what point does not talking move from being a coping mechanism so that, we don't have that blow up right away so I can process? And when does it move from that healthy coping into I'm just stonewalling you and now it's unhealthy coping? At what point do you think that changes over?
Oh, I don't think it's healthy at all. Because at this point, conflict is not being resolved. It's just being managed. Mm-hmm. And at this point, I'm just kind of here until I move, until my next move is in place, right? So that I can act on it. Communication, and again, it goes back down to communication and stonewalling, and that's exactly what it is. At this point, I feel like my other partner is not hearing me. They're not addressing my needs. And I just need an exit strategy at this point. So we're talking about if it's on life support, if your partner is no longer talking to you about issues or about just concerns or, hey, today this happened to me at work, that's a red flag. When things happen to me at work, the first person I'm calling is my husband for everything. If I have an issue with something, I'm telling him. I don't need him to find out because I've talked or spoke to my mom or his mom. That's another thing. We can't get in-laws involved, right? I mean, it's just so many different ways of when there is this silence at that moment is not good. It's not healthy whatsoever. And if you're talking about trying to make it work, but you are silent, you're doing nothing. Yeah. It is stonewalling. It is holding it in. And now, again, nothing is being resolved. It's just being managed. And at some point, it will lead to a blow up if you don't plan to just move out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I would say, speaking to the relative aspect of it, that just tends to add to contempt and criticism. I mean, now all you've managed to do in going to talk to your relatives is add more people on your, I'm going to call it your CC team, your criticism and contempt team. You got more people on the team. So now when you say he ain't no good, you know what they're going to do? They're going to come back and say, no good, boom, and then they're going to support you in it. Somebody put the backflip, and now you got a crew of people cheering you on in whatever you decide to do. So that's why, as you point out, it is really good to talk to your partner. Now, what I will say, I'm going to say I disagree. I do believe that sometimes silence is necessary. Because if we already at 100, maybe I need to walk away from you for a quick second.
Oh, yes.
I can come back down, because what I don't want to have happen is an argument becomes a gunfight at OK Corral, because we didn't take the second or take the beat to go, wait a minute, let me walk away. Remember who you are. Remember the fact that I do love you. And if I don't love you right now, I loved you at some point before we end up fighting like two people in the street. And that's just never a good look.
Right. And it's like that classic fighting fairly, you know what I mean? Like that we all learn about, right, as therapists. But the thing is, when you think about fighting fairly, it doesn't really make sense to most people, right? How do you fight fairly? But it's just like you said, Dr. Jamaal, walking away for a minute, walking away. But you don't walk away to never come back to that topic, because obviously it's an issue, but you need those heart rates to go down. You need to be level-headed and rational as you can be. And when that heart rate is up, you're going to be coming out with all kinds of things that you later on will be like, man, I didn't even want to say all that. You know what I mean? I said that out of anger. And so we don't want to go there. But I will tell you one thing, to Dr. DeBerry's point. If a woman is silent,
end of discussion. This is
discussion. Yeah, it is. It's difficult because when we get to a point where we ain't talking no more, it's going to be hard to come back from that. And the thing is, it's because we think we've tried so much, and it's like, I'm done. You know what I mean? And when you're done, it's hard to bounce back for that. So men out there, what I would say is, yes, we do like to talk. Yes, we do. Okay. And now you're going to have to compromise with that. And even if it means that you come up with, and I know these sound like cliche and things of that nature, but they're realistic. Even if you have a point where you say, we're going to have these conversations once a week, twice a week, or if you're upset about something, look, right after work ain't the time. Give me some time to breathe. You know what I mean? You can come up with those types of things to make it work. That is quite all right. At the end of the day, communication is very, very important. And I don't want to hear nothing about, I'm not a talker. Yeah, well, you was talking when you got me. So we got to keep on talking, okay?
And that doesn't always mean verbal.
Well, I need my brother, Dr. Lester, to give me some
Man,
the
ladies is ready. Do you hear me?
I'm trying to tell you, y'all came out hard this episode. I guess what I want to say is, Major Dr. Greenidge, you bring up a good point. What you did to get that phone number or what you did to get that individual, it has to be the same trend that you do to keep that individual. And more and more now that I see it, from, just my work, I see that, some things aren't continued. If she likes Russell Stover's candy and you go and get her some Jolly Ranchers, then, things are changing. Yeah. And I guess what I want to say is the most important person in a relationship is the other person. And sometimes when, that other person is no longer, from your perspective, the most important person, and the feeling is mutual from across the train tracks, then you find yourself in that silence. And you ladies brought up talking, and talking and communication, yes, but I think that to go a step further, it's talking, but it's actually having the courage to talk about it, whatever that it is. Is that it money management? Is that it a credit score situation? Is that it sex? Is that it why do I have to keep going to church by myself? Is that it who is she or who is he? You have to be willing to talk about it. And I know it creates some discomfort because it could quite possibly end a relationship. Yeah. There are kids involved, sometimes multiple kids, and then you just have to wear the scarlet letter of an individual that whose relationship wasn't successful. And I guess that is the main thing. What are others going to think? So that's what I got to say so far. I'm gonna hand it on back to you, Doctor. But I don't know. The ladies are out, man.
This is the kind of this is the hitch of it, though. So I'm hearing y'all say talk, all right, and I'm all for talking. But the problem I feel that comes along with talking sometimes is, as Dr. Lester pointed out, we're talking around the issue and we're talking to symptoms of the issue, but we're not speaking to the issue itself. And at some point, I'll say for men especially, it gets tiresome to continually talk about the same thing that's not resolving what's causing us to have to keep having these talks in the first place. Yeah. So, and I also acknowledge that men have a tendency we want to solve the problem. Women are talking about feelings. So the issue also comes is we're coming at it from different perspectives. Yeah. So men, again, uncomfortable, but you're going to have to start some sentences that say, I feel. And when she tells you, this is how I feel, you can't fight that. Don't defend against what she feels, because the fact is, if as you point out, if I bought you Jolly Ranchers, but you wanted Russell Stover's, and for some reason you were hurt by that, because maybe you were hurt because you're like, you don't know me after all this time. Yeah, in my mind, I'm like, you ought to be happy I bought you something, period. But be that as it may, I'm gonna apologize, because maybe on some level, hey, you know what, we have been together a long time. I'm sorry that you felt this way. And I'm sorry that, this is where we've come to, but at the same time, you know what? I'm going to take responsibility and I'm going to walk off from that. I'm validating. That's how you feel.
Well, Dr. Fortner, you know what? I think that's a matter of love language. So we're talking about talk, the verbal part. There's a lot of nonverbal that goes along with communication as well. So, for example, if I have a wife, if I have a husband who's coming to me and says, hey, every Friday, I'm giving my wife rose. And she's not appreciating that. And then I talk to the woman, and the woman is saying, you know what? I mean, I appreciate the roses, but I'm asking him to hold me at night. See, that's that nonverbal stuff. The 5 love languages. What are we really speaking? What are we really talking without saying anything? So, yes, I don't want your Jolly Rancher. I want a Kit Kat. Because at the end of the day, you should know me. You should know that Kit Kat is my preference. Don't give me oranges when I'm asking for apples, even though we need both, right?
Right.
That's not that nonverbal. It really truly matters. Now I'm gonna still eat that Jolly Rancher when you're not looking, but
Exactly.
however, Kit Kat, I need a Kit Kat because if we've been together for a while, the nonverbal matters, and it is so important for couples to take their love language assessments, and not just one time. Every 5 to 7 years, individually, biologically, we change. So guess what? A couple of years ago, my love language was acts of service. Now it's no, I need you to hold me at night. And I think it's important for people to know on an individual level, what is your love language? How do you like for people to show you love? And then in that sense, okay, now I need to step back, because if my husband is telling me this is how he wants me to show him love, but I'm giving him this, it's not going to work. At that point, we're not listening to each other. There will be stonewalling. And like you said, now communication issues are not being resolved because we're hopping from this topic, and then we're going to say, you remember back when you did X, Y, and Z? See, we're never resolving anything.
Yeah.
Because we're not listening, and we're stonewalling, and it's the verbal and the nonverbal.
Yeah.
So Dr. DeBerry mentioned love languages. So for those who don't know what love languages are, so there are 5 love languages. One is words of affirmation. Just that constant encouragement. I love you. You're doing great. I'm happy to see you. That kind of thing. The second one is physical touch. Of course, that's pretty self-explanatory. Hugging, holding hands, kissing, that kind of thing. The third is receiving gifts. You like little tokens of appreciation that show, something that's tangible that you can see that shows that the person cares. There's quality time. Again, fairly self-explanatory. Let's just sit here together and watch TV, or let's, play a board game and do whatever we do together. And the fifth is acts of service. So I'm all in the acts of service. And in case anybody was wondering, acts of service is working for me. You ain't even got to cook the food, but if you go to Walmart and stand in that line and bring home the groceries, that's it. That's it. I know you love me. I know you love me right there. That's it. Just go get the groceries. Make it so I ain't got to go after work. Oh, thank you, Father. Thank you. Hey, groceries on the table when I came in. I'll cook the food. Just go get the groceries. Please, please, please. All right. I'm being silly, but no, really, you were saying, I'm sorry.
Well, let me jump in there. I think is what you guys have some very valid points. I want to go back to the feelings comment. Yes, women talk about feelings, right? And so when you go and you get that Jolly Rancher, when you know I want this chocolate, it's that now I'm thinking you don't really care. Like you just went and just check marked something. I know she wants some candy, but I don't really know what candy that is, so I'm gonna just give her this Jolly Rancher. So that's what we're thinking. You feel like you've done something awesome by going and doing it in the first place, and thank you for doing that. I do appreciate it, but you don't know me. You know what I mean? Because if you knew me for these past 10 years, I want that chocolate candy, not that Jolly Rancher candy. And yes, I will eat it behind your back. Okay, so the second point, is oftentimes what we do is we do what we like in the relationship, right? So my love language might be acts of service, like Dr. Jamaal, and so I might go to Walmart, right? But, Dr. Lester might like physical touch, and I don't ever touch him. You know what I mean? Because let me bring up something really important in the Black community. A lot of times Black women, we don't want to be cuddled all night long. I give you 10 seconds, and that's about it. Move back, brother. It's hot up in here. And so the thing is, though, we've got to compromise, and that's the point, because everybody is fighting because we're not getting what we want. And so one of my friends told me that men are simple, right? And men, if they say they want A, B, C, and D, that's exactly what they want. Give it to them. That's fine. But why am I giving you A, B, C, and D when you're giving me nothing, right? Or you're giving me A and B, but not C, D, and E. You see what I'm saying? So it goes back. And then Dr. Jamaal made a point earlier as well Oftentimes we enable this behavior. We'll give you a pass, right? Okay, well, thank you for them Jolly Ranchers. But in my mind, or to my sister, I'm like, he bought me these Jolly Ranchers. No, I don't like them Jolly Ranchers. You know what I mean? And so it's talking about that it, like Dr. Lester said earlier, talking about that it. Oftentimes we forget to be friends. I'm going to go back to being friends. We can talk about anything to our friends, but for whatever reason in our intimate relationships, it flips, especially when you get married, it flips. And then now we're too afraid to say, you got a beer belly. I mean, I'm not attracted to that beer belly no more. You know what I mean? And the thing is, but it's true. And I would tell my best friend that in a heartbeat. If you're my best friend as my husband or my wife, why can't I say that bothers me without you jumping down my throat? You see what I'm saying?
And I think again that speaks to the defensiveness and how once that's in the play, when defensiveness is in play, man, it's going to be a hard way to go, because if we can't even talk about what the issue is, if we can't even talk about it without somebody feeling like you ain't gonna say I did when I know you did kind of situation, it's like, okay, well, yeah, we might need to go on ahead and just walk our separate ways, call this a day. We tried it. Let's go on and go in a different direction. So let me ask y'all this. What are some reasons, and I think Dr. Lester hit one of them earlier, what are some reasons that people would stay in a situation where they're clearly unhappy and they're clearly feeling like this relationship is right now on the ventilator and barely making it? Why am I going to stay here? What are some reasons for that?
Ooh, that's a list.
Really, the older I get, I learned that a lot of people are doing things for other people. And when I say other people, I think that people stay in these relationships, one, for kids, and then also two, because we were Michelle and Barack. You're the lawyer, I'm the doctor, and together when we're we just we complement one another so well. But behind closed doors, there's domestic violence, there's anger, and those there are things that just make everyone feel uneasy. But really, I feel that people stick around in relationships because they worry so much about what other people say. I was joking earlier about the scarlet letter, but I feel that the scarlet letter is real because, some people don't want to wear that scarlet letter that has the big D right there that says divorce, because then they start to wonder, well, what is wrong with me? Is there something wrong with me? I'm a failure. I'm this, I'm that. And they just probably can't find love again. But for me, one's going to stick into a relationship if they worry about what people say. And if they just, it's sometimes misery, I'm just going to be miserable for the rest of my life. And they don't recognize that on the other side of misery is happiness, a fresh start, new beginnings, and love.
Life is too short for misery. I don't play that.
I would have to say, because I am divorced, hope and religion. When you're talking about friends, so my first marriage, high school sweethearts, really saw forever in the future, right? Like that was it. If this was forever in the future, there was no one else. It was, him and I, and that's exactly how it was going to be. And I think getting to the point of realizing this isn't going to work. Religion played a big part for me until my grandfather told me, hey, just because you got married in the church doesn't mean God was in it. And I had to realize we did not pray before we said I do, or before we even thought about I do. And it was very hard to the point where when I made the decision to accept that, what, this isn't the place for either one of us, not just for me, but for both of us. Neither one of us are happy. I had a conversation with God that went like this. All right, God, I'm going to leave. And if that means I will never find any other person to be happy with or to spend the rest of my life with, I will accept that punishment. Religion plays a big part in, for me anyway, why I stayed, because I knew 2 months in, I made a mistake. Ooh, this was a mistake. How did I do? Why did I do this? What happened? Hope played a big part. But what released me was when Granddaddy said, just because you got married in a church doesn't mean God was in it. And I realized we did not pray over that relationship. We did not pray in taking that next step of this forever commitment and being young at the time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Dr. Greenidge, what's happening?
Yeah, that's a great point, I think. And I too have been divorced twice. And as a matter of fact, Dr. Lester, you brought up a good point. The scarlet letter was stamped on me. I mean, I was like, I ain't telling nobody. And and it was like, for me, like we talked about in the previous episode, it was like that sense of failure. Like I couldn't make this work. You know what I mean? And it was I, not we, not us. Number one, marrying so young, you know what I mean? Marrying at a time where I didn't even know what life was about in the first place. And then having kids and not wanting them to see Black love and wanting them to know that relationships can work, but then having to realize later on that they're going to see that we're not happy. Right. And that's not fair either. And I struggle too with religion as well. I grew up in the church, you know what I mean? And I'm like, I'm going to hell, you know what I mean? And I was waiting on a reason. I'm like, okay, these are the reasons the Bible say. As soon as this happened, it's over. And and it was unrealistic, but I was super young, right? And then fast forward to the second marriage, jumped right in to the complete opposite person, right? Complete opposite of what I got. Okay, this gotta work because he got all these different things that the first one didn't, right? Still not realizing who I am, still young, you know what I mean? And not ready for it, right? And then now the shame, because this is going to be twice over if we don't make this work. You know what I mean? This is going to be twice over. And what it created is a struggle in that relationship where I think the abuse starts to occur, like the emotional and verbal abuse, because now we're two unhappy people forced to stay in this relationship, right? Like forced in ourselves, right? Nobody told us we had to, but we're trying to make it work, you know. And then that's when that power and control comes in, and it keeps you in, you know what I mean? It keeps you in that relationship, and it keeps you not confident enough to be able to move on and move away from the relationship. And now both of my ex-husbands are great men, right? They just weren't great for me, and that's what I learned in the long run. And I said, okay, Lord, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to move away from this second relationship, and I'm not going to get into another one until you direct me to that person. And I'm okay with that. If that means that there's not a person out there, then by all means, that is okay. But I think that some of the things that I saw in the previous relationships was a result of neither one of us being prepared to be in those relationships because we didn't know how. And I think that created some of the negativity that we all experienced in those relationships.
You know, Dr. Greenidge, I think you pointed something out that like really just resonated with me. That idea of failure. And you know, we talked about imposter syndrome and having the perfectionist mentality. So for those who are in those relationships and you know it's not working, but you just won't leave because you don't like the idea that you failed at something. And even though, you know, if you were being rational and thinking rationally, you can say, you know what, we're two good people. We're just not good for each other. But, and we can be okay. And I feel like everyone has this idea like every divorce has to be this messy, knock down, drag out thing, when sometimes it's genuinely like, you know what, we gonna still be who we are. We're just not doing it together. Like we're done. And that's okay. And I really want to drive that home that is okay. Sometimes relationships will end and it's cool. Nobody has to be, you know, I don't have to say your name and spit after it. I'm not going to be out shaking bones on your yard or nothing. You good. You know, it's just we can't be together in this way because we don't do good things for each other.
Right.
And also, it's like that idea of I think for some people it's sunken costs. Are y'all familiar with like sunken costs, where it's like, you buy a house and then you're saying, well, I'm gonna renovate it. But then as you restart the renovation, they go, oh, your foundation messed up. And you go, oh, I'm gonna fix that. Then they go, oh, your cesspool backing up under the foundation.
Lord.
Like, you just keep putting more and more into it because you want it to finally be what, you envisioned it being. And for a lot of us, our relationships are nothing but sunken costs. Okay, they cheated on me, but I said okay and let them come back, and we're gonna try it one more again. And then they cheated on me again, this time with my cousin. Now I don't talk to that wench no more, but we're gonna keep on trying. We're gonna push forward. And then it's like, okay, so at what point do you stop and go, wait a minute, this is just who they are.
Yes.
And by constantly just accepting this apology with no honest change, all I'm doing is enabling.
Yes.
Correct.
So at some point, I think we have to honestly do a self-assessment and know that it's okay to leave if I have to. Or better yet, maybe the relationship is just not working out as it is. Maybe we need to try something different. I know a lot of people, especially in Black communities, get upset when people talk about open relationships. But ultimately, a lot of y'all, let me tell the truth. Hold on, let me get an oven mitt because the tea is hot.
Uh-oh.
I mean, a lot of y'all are in open relationships anyway.
I need some water. I need a mug.
Call it a thing. A lot of y'all in open relationships anyway. She laying it low and spreading it wide. He giving it away with a double coupon. And at the end of the day, y'all got 12 other people in your relationship. Yeah. But in your mind, oh, it's just me and her, me and him. And it's like, no, it's not. How about y'all stop the lying, call this what it is, and then go forward. That way, ain't nobody looking around with the crazy face when somebody walk up to you and go, hey, who is this?
Yeah, exactly.
That level of honesty. Like, I know a lot of people when they were talking about Will and Jada Pinkett and Monique and her husband and Ozzy Davis and Ruby Dee. I mean, all these people, when they're talking about open relationships, people are like, I could never do that. And as you say that, your husband is around the corner.
Yes.
With the pork chop sandwich lady. Tell the truth, shame the devil.
Right.
At this point, it's kind of figure out what works for you. If you're okay with that, be okay with it. Just move on. Nobody else lives in your house but you. Yeah. Well, that's the pork chop sandwich later there when you're at work. You need to handle all that.
Right. And you know what, Dr. Jamaal, I tell clients this all the time, especially men. 9 times out of 10, if you have this conversation with the woman, like, look, I just don't want to be with one person. I want to have my main person, but I want to be able to dibble and dabble a little bit. There is going to be women that says okay to that, and there's going to be women that say absolutely not, and they're going to walk away. You've got to be willing to accept that. You're going to either find somebody that's going to go along or not. That's the bottom line. But the problem is you don't even want to talk about it because you want your cake, you want to eat it, and then you want to go for seconds and thirds and all these things and not leave nothing for nobody else. And why? You know what I mean? It's at the end of the day, if you actually have the conversation, you might actually get what you want. I'm just saying, not for me now, but
somebody else. Somebody else make up for that again.
Exactly. But yeah, not saying that anybody has to, you have to do it. I'm just saying if you actually communicated your needs, your wants, or whatever the case may be, you might get what you want, but you also are taking a risk that you might find someone like me that says absolutely not. I want to be in a monogamous relationship, but you have to accept that and respect me enough to know that I don't want to deal with the foolery, right? And so, but let's have a conversation. You never know. Maybe I might change my mind if you it.
But I think it goes to communication. A lot of times when couples come to me, my first question that I'm asking is, how did you observe mom and dad handling their arguments? How did you, and I'm asking both parties, right? because that's what we first learn to communicate is family. And a lot of times people just don't communicate. When you look at a lot of dynamics within the family unit, a lot of things are just swept up under the rug. Okay, yeah, so we know that this cousin here lies a lot, but no one's calling her out on it, right? And not in a very ugly, confrontational way, but why is no one sitting down with this cousin that we know lies all the time to just say, hey, stop, we know what you're doing, right? How come we do not handle conflict within the family unit? And everything is just so hush-hush because that spills over into our relationships. We have to know how to communicate and how to talk and not just, again, stonewalling. And then the whole thing of what I feel. I almost wonder if that's just the, what is it called? Like a gender type thing of you just don't talk about how you feel for men sometimes. And like you said, I think Dr. Fortner, you said this earlier in that men want action. A lot of times my husband, I'll be done talking, he'll be like, okay, babe, what you want me to do? You just did it. I just needed you to listen. And he was like, all right, good deal. Then what's my next step though? Like it feel like there's something that's extra. Okay, when I get home, I'm gonna just need you to hug me. Just say, hey baby, how you doing? Give me a hug. Like it's that type of things, right? Where communication is so important. So even if it's not a matter of feeling or if it's not just a matter of that action part, communicating what is the next step to make sure that this issue is resolved.
Definitely. I mean,
There's no. I'm saying I'm a viewer. This episode, I ain't gonna tell. I mean, I've learned more in the last 30 minutes. But I mean, I guess what I want to say is there's this idea of like a pain-free breakup, and the reality is that feelings are going to be hurt, and for the viewers, are you a rip the Band-Aid off kind of person, or are you a unplug the iron kind of person? And perhaps you'll have to figure that out and move forward with it. And I mean, one thing that keeps replaying in my mind, I've tried to get it out, was when Major Dr. Greenidge said that he got the beer belly, and things change. Because let's be 100, and let's yes, he may have gotten a beer belly, but you be going to sleep. We ain't gonna go there. But I'm just saying, I mean, it ain't how it used to be.
Right.
It ain't how it used to be. And I guess what I want to say is nobody deserves to feel unwanted. Nobody, I guess, when you start to feel unwanted, time to go. And if you are always the stimulus and that person is the response, then, it gets old after a while. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, for me, it's it's been a pleasure watching this episode.
It was slacking. This is when I needed that Y chromosome support, and you sat there quietly.
And didn't say
you're my brother and everything.
Overwhelming. It was overwhelming with just too much intelligence. I just couldn't handle it.
Can't dog nothing.
Look, Dr. Fortner, where were your antennas?
All right, y'all. Thank you so much. We've had so much fun here recording this, clearly. We'll be back next week with the second part of the series where we're talking about let's stay together. Let's try and keep this under control. We're not going to sit there and bring you the Jolly Ranchers when we knew you wanted chocolate. And we're going to hug you more, and we're going to go get the groceries, and we're going to take the trash out. Let's talk about that. We're going to talk about how to stay together these days. People don't listen to Al Green like they used to do. We're going to try and stay together. That's what we're going to be doing next week. We got some special guests coming, and our very own Dr. Regina Parnell. She should be back with us. We've been listening to episodes, so we happy to have her back. Y'all be well, and don't be afraid to take those assessments when it comes down to whether or not maybe this relationship needs to end. But let me tell you, if you found somebody worth fighting for, you fight for them, and you do everything you can do to stay together. Our hope is that you be well, be in good mental health. We'll see y'all next week now.